What's a movie that you saw when you were way too young to see it? Growing up, the only movie my parents told me I couldn't watch was The Blair Witch Project. It was really surprising for me when I rewatched this film recently to find out that my parents let me watch this when I was so young, because it is way too scary and it is way too adult in its content for me to have been watching it when I was like 10. Mom and Dad, what were you thinking? Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily, or La Movie Mija. I'm a part-time filmmaker, full-time movie lover, and today I'm actually going to take you with me to the Vista Theater in Los Angeles to watch An American Werewolf in London. As you may know, I love talking about movies on this channel, but I also really love food and bars, and I love finding new places to frequent. And one of my favorite 1-2 combos to check out recently is going to the Vista Theater, but also around the corner is Tiki Tea, a tiki bar that's been around since the 60s. It's a very tiny establishment. The decor inside is amazing. There's probably going to be a line when you go to get in because there's so few seats, but once you're in, like, the staff is incredible. It's such an experience being inside that establishment. The drinks are also wonderful. I had the raised mistake last time I went, and I don't think it was a mistake. I think it's a mistake if you get more than one, possibly. But that's just a little date idea. Maybe you should tag someone in the comments who you'd like to go on this little movie night tiki date with, because it is a really fun time in my opinion. And the Vista Theater, I can't say enough great things about the theater. I love that they use real butter on their popcorn, and it was the perfect after drink snack to accompany me on this showing of An American Werewolf in London. Before the movie starts at the Vista Theater, they typically play like previews to movies that are also like throwback. So one of the previews for this movie was The Exorcist, and I had never seen this trailer for The Exorcist before, and I was so completely mesmerized. Let me know if you've seen it. I don't even know if it's on YouTube. If there's a link, I'll put it in the description below, but I don't know. I don't want to like terrify you like that. It's up to your discretion if you watch it, but essentially it's like a series of flashing images of just like Reagan and the demon's face, like back and forth, and it's just so shocking, but I couldn't look away. I was like entranced by it, and it was really effective in putting me in the mindset of like, what was it like to watch this movie at this time? Because if I saw that on the big screen, even now, that was horrifying. It's a great experiment in empathizing with other audiences. I know sometimes we hear these stories about audiences who walk out or freak out because a movie was just so terrifying then, but if you saw that Exorcist trailer like I did, it was a trip. It was a lot. Now let's talk about the movie itself. An American Werewolf in London is a movie from 1981, and it holds up in the best way. It is way funnier than I remembered it being. I mean, I was like 10 when I first saw this, so like how would any of these jokes have landed on me? And it is even scarier than I remembered it. Like, I remember being so freaked out by the transformation scene, but like watching it now within the context of like the human horror at play, like the what's at stake between David and Jack's relationship, and feeling for them on a much more human level now was just wow. Why don't we have more movies like this? I love that it's like a buddy comedy that's also horrific. Like, this is definitely a predecessor to movies like Shaun of the Dead. Like, we wouldn't have horror comedy movies like Shaun of the Dead without movies like this, and I just love how, you know, fresh it is. The 80s were a wild time, and it feels like there was not as much of this expectation to fall into certain categories or a list on Netflix. Like, you don't have to fit into a certain box, and I love that this movie is just so much of everything. I love the soundtrack to this movie. So many Blue Moon Dance. Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. Like, how silly is it to have these songs in this film? I loved that they weren't afraid to like play with the tone of this movie. I'm also a sucker for a small town like mystery, and I love that there's a lot of restraint in the exploration of the lore of the werewolf. Like, we see the pentagram in the pub. Like, we hear the pub goers kind of like whisper around some things here and there, but we don't really get a lot of backstory. We do learn that the victims of the werewolf don't get to cross over into like eternal life or whatever that is until the bloodline of the werewolf is ended. And so David's humanity is like tied up in Jack's death, and like that dichotomy in their relationship I just found so compelling. And it was also a great excuse for us to see more of the incredible work of master makeup artist Rick Baker. I mean, all the things have been said about this man, but getting to see this particular transformation on the big screen for the first time was wow. There were so many details within that transformation that just made my like stomach churn. I mean, it was either the butter from the popcorn or my drink from Tiki tea, but like I was starting to feel physically sick watching this happen, especially when they got to the nails. There's something about the nails. Like I have a lot of fear wrapped up in like nail things. Ugh, don't even get me started on that. One scene from Black Swan with the hangnail. Why did I say it? Intrusive thoughts. The nails coming out, the hands elongating, the face getting stretched. There's just so many instances in that transformation. And I know that the story goes that Rick Baker was frustrated with writer-director John Landis for only showing seconds close-ups on these things when he spent months preparing for this film. But when you see it all together in this package, it's just so effective and so wonderful. And as horrifying as that is, the depictions of Jack and having that built into the story, like Jack is haunting David because he can't cross over as long as David is alive because he's carrying off the werewolf blood. Being able to revisit Jack in those different levels of decay especially the first one with his like skin hanging off of his neck, genius. It was incredible, and I was laughing. Like the last time they see each other is in that adult movie house. Leading up to that scene, I was like, why are there so many posters for this like adult movie? Is that gonna mean anything later? And yes it did. The bro buddy comedy of this all, like I didn't see it coming. I also love the level of restraint and not trying to over explain werewolves to us. We understand. He gets bit, he turns into a werewolf, full moon, he becomes werewolf. Appreciate that there wasn't any further attempts to like show him in different settings. It was really like a small story. I think everything takes place in the matter of a week or so. I'm not sure, but like there's a finite amount of time within this film, and I feel like it's like very small in scale, but the stakes are eternal damnation. Like the stakes are high. So I really appreciate when a movie is able to balance something really small in scope with just a few characters, but also gives us instances of like massive hysteria and violence and horrific events. The horror doesn't come from seeing the werewolf around either. Like we rely sometimes too much on our capabilities with CGI or mocap suits to show too much of a good thing. But in this instance, the creative decision to only give us flashes of the wolf is like, whew, let your brain fill in the blanks. And let me tell you what, my brain is really good at that. Too good at that. Intrusive thoughts. They didn't just rely on the wolf to be scary. There are some like jump scares in there that are baked in with the transitions to loud things happening in the next scene. But what I found truly horrific was the car crash towards the end of the film in Piccadilly Circus. Terrifying. People are getting run over, like cars are crashing into each other, double decker like flips over. There is so much chaos in that scene, and it really sells the horror of that entire event. And it doesn't just rely on the wolf clawing at people or showing him interacting with humans. It relies on just the hysteria that his presence creates, and the way it's all edited together is just really effective. If you somehow don't know, this movie marks the Academy Awards' first time awarding Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and it was given to Rick Baker for this movie. The results speak for themselves, and every other Oscar he's won since then. I loved it. I loved how simple in scope this movie is. I loved that it wasn't afraid to balance horror and comedy, and it does so effectively, and it just felt small, like very simple. I really appreciate when a movie has restraint and it has a point of view and it's sticking to that. And it's a classic. So if you're looking for a movie to add to your spooky season watch list, I think An American Werewolf in London should definitely be on there. Definitely one you should watch with your friends. Let me know if you have a favorite John Landis film or a favorite depiction of werewolves in movies. This was such a fun watch, and I'm glad I got to see it on the big screen. Okay, that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.